Hello. So on this careers conversation show, I have always promised that I'm going to bring in young dynamic achievers. So today I have Mr. Amitesh Sinha. So his journey is exciting because he started from Ranchi, which is not one of like a metropolitan city. It's a small town in some sort. From there, he pursued his dreams in the city of Mumbai, became a chartered accountant in 2006, then worked in KPMG and then shared service, NVIDIA. Then he was the CFO of LinkedIn India, worked with the Greenlight, and now he's doing something which is very exciting. He's into impact investments at SIMA. So we are going to hear about his journey. So welcome to the show, Mr. Amitesh, and
Thank
it's
you.
been a pleasure having you. So, before we plunge into your professional life, please tell us about your formative years in Ranchi. Your schooling was entirely in Ranchi. College, was it in Ranchi? Did you come to Bombay for that? Your family members, siblings, the values that you learned from them.
Sure, Anurag. First of all, thanks for having me. I really fancy telling this to people. The school I come from is the same school as, our former Indian captain, the cricket
MS
captain,
Dhoni.
came in. Yes, so he was almost 6 years senior to me, but we had a privilege interacting with him. I was in the same house with him. So that's a little on the schooling side. It's called DAV Shamli. Then I did my graduation also from Ranchi from St. Xavier's College. And then we'll talk about a little more how I got into the CA. But coming to my family, my father was a small businessman. Now he's retired. Um, and my siblings, all of them studied from the same school. One is into a law profession. He was a partner with Khaitan, recently started his own venture. My sister completed the law graduation, but she's getting into some sort of a fashion industry. Now, the value proposition which I get from my family is number one, from my father, I learned a lot more about how business works, seeing that from early days. From my brother, since he has worked into he has dealt with large corporates. So I used to live with him when I was in Mumbai and doing my CA finals, and learned a lot about how you used to deal and tackle some of the large problems. We used to discuss, of course, not keeping things in confidentiality of some of the deals which he was working on. But I learned a lot from him about the corporate world even before getting into the corporate. And yeah, that's pretty much about my family background. Now I have I'm married. My wife works for a bank. She's a banker, and I have a 4-year-old daughter. With her, I love spending time on weekends. And with this whole lockdown, we get to spend a lot of time together in the evenings as well.
So when did you shift to Mumbai? Did you start CA after shifting to Mumbai? And was it like a default choice as a commerce student? And at that point of time, did you have an inkling that you'd come so far? And so that's it.
Sure. I was, from the beginning, I was not a commerce student. I was a science student until class 12th, and I had an inclination towards doing engineering. And I did appear for IT screening. I did appear for AI Triple E. I got a decent rank in AI Triple E, and I was being, counseled at BIT Meshra, and I was not getting my right stream. I always wanted to do computer science or something in electronics, because that is the time when these things were very popular, and I always wanted to go into that field. But CA I can easily say that CA was an accident, because one of my other friends who also appeared for these entrance exam, and he didn't get that much rank so that he couldn't be called for counseling from some of these engineering college. And I happened to be at his home in one of those evenings when all of these things were going on, and there was a lot of moving parts. And I saw on his table, coffee table, that there was a CA prospectus. I knew about what CA is at a very high level. The only thing I knew is they sign something, like some finance stuff. And then I asked him, hey, what is this? What are the prospects? And there was no accessibility, what we have right now of internet and Google at that point of time, and I'm talking roughly about 2001 and 2, when all of this was happening, and there was no much of accessibility on Google and stuff like that. So what I could get is that prospectus. I went to the CA Institute, bought that prospectus, read through it, then I could, try connecting with some of the other neighborhood people who have commerce background, and that's how I actually got into this commerce background, because I didn't get my stream in engineering, and I just accidentally got into this CA thing, and it just has been a pleasant journey so far. And I cleared CA in all first attempts, and then one of the very obvious choice, once you clear your CA, is to start working with a big four. And then things just followed on based on because when I joined big four, within 6 months I realized this is not the place for me. Keep on doing audit all my life, and I wanted to explore other things. And then the other part of the journey started following after my stint at big four.
And your personality suits more of an MBA, and you've been even a visiting faculty at a lot of MBA schools. So at that point, you never thought of once completing CA and then going for an MBA?
Actually, I didn't get time, because once you're into big four, I always wanted to do an MBA. That's a fact. And I still sometimes believe that I could do some sort of executive MBA from some of the premier institutes, either in India or abroad. I always fancied doing an MBA, but once I got into the big four, we had very long working hours. So there's no scope of even thinking of we can do something on the MBA front. And then, the journey went along well. I got into industry, into controllership roles. And then I saw CPA could be helpful for me. And, then it just followed with several stints I had with some of the companies like GE, NVIDIA, and then Greenlight. And it just followed on. And I thought that, I will always do it, but it never happened. Maybe because I didn't got time, or I was too busy learning within the organization itself. And I had good mentors, and things just followed on. So that's about my journey of why I didn't do MBA.
So you've done the entire full stack in terms of working in Big Four, working in shared service of a technology company, working in a VC-backed solar thing, and then social media, LinkedIn. So how was, and LinkedIn, because it's all over. I mean, what was that kind of an experience? You could shed some more light on your experience with LinkedIn India, because that time probably LinkedIn was growing and it's been at the peak
Yes.
now.
Yes, LinkedIn is a great platform. Let me first talk about the product. I've been using it since 2008, and I've been great admirer of that product. And many of the connections I have made, I have like several stories of how I have transacted big deals, which has come through connections from LinkedIn. Some of the deals which I did, that deals for Greenlight, and some of the other transactions which I do has come up with a connection at Greenlight, at LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a great platform. It's a great product. So when I got an opportunity to work with them, I was very excited about it, because I've heard a lot of good things in terms of being them one of the best employers in the world. And when I got this opportunities, I was excited and I jumped into it. And there have been a humongous learning in this past 18 months. That's my stint with LinkedIn. There's a lot of learnings, because the way they operate, and they are flexible in giving an opportunity for people to learn several things. So in short, I can tell at LinkedIn, you could, if you are capable, if you are willing to learn, if you are willing to do new things, they don't restrict you. So humongous learning. It was my first stint with a tech company of this sort in terms of social media. So there's a lot of things which I learned, and which were not part of my finance domain. I could only do that because something interests me. And they never restrict you. Even if you want to learn something different, if you, being a finance background, if you want to learn data science, or if you want to understand what's happening on the engineering stuff, they allow doing that. So that's the best part of any employer being so flexible and having so much benefits to the employees, not only in terms of monetary or other flexi benefits or having a great office. What they offer you is a real learning platform for their employees. And I think that's a great opportunity for anyone. I could have stayed longer. It was going on great, but we can talk about this. That SIMA opportunity came in, and I could reflect back of what I did at Greenlight, and that's how I landed up with SIMA. But of course, LinkedIn was a great learning.
Now, we last week had Mr. Amit Kumar. He is a VC at our ventures. So we kind of understood what it is about being an investment aggregator and investment platform. Now you have a very specific niche, which is social impact investing. So please help us understand that at SIMA, what exactly do you do in terms of impact investment? How is it different from a normal investment? So is it like, do you fund only NGOs or non-profit, or even they are profitable investments? And if they are like impact investments, can they still make money? So do you also have still like a typical 30% IRR kind of a target from your investments? What is kind of your portfolio size, etc.? Please help us understand this entire gamut of social finance.
Yeah, so let me first start with the philosophy which we come in this impact space. And our CEO, Asad, is very passionate about this. And that philosophy is never shy away from profits, even though if you are trying to solve a social problem. Because what you do is from that profit, it gives you a scalability option. Like if you shy away from profits, you will be always looking out for funding, or you'll be always looking out for some sort of a cash in to support and scale up your business. But if you make even a social entrepreneurship into a for-profit business, that allows you to pump in that profit and cash which you generate back into that social mission, which will help you scale even larger. Now, at SIMA, we believe in that too, and all our portfolio companies are for profit, because this is a huge space we are getting into. And I think let me first start with some of the sectors which we invest in. One of the biggest is the off-grid solar. We are getting bigger in the microfinance space. We have some investment in education, and we are also on our way to start investing in low-cost housing. And there are many other funds which we are discussing right now, but these are primarily the four things which we are doing right now. And if you see all of these sectors, whether it be off-grid solar or microfinance, unless they build up their operation and a business model in a way that they start generating operational cash, for them to grow is virtually impossible. So be it an off-grid solar company where they are selling portable lamps either on upfront, or they are doing some sort of a financing, they need to start generating cash, because unless they do that, they won't be sustainable. So overall, this whole impact financing is a mix of commercial finance, plus you also need to have an acumen of the problem these social entrepreneurships and social organizations are serving, because most of these are serving people who are bottom of the pyramid, and you need to understand their operating model. Because let me give you an example of off-grid solar company where our portfolio companies are deeply invested in sub-Saharan Africa region, which is I can easily say 70% of people are living below the poverty line. And to sell these financing products to these customers become very difficult, because there have been a lot of questions around how do you collect this money? How do you make sure you keep your asset quality intact of what you have committed to your investors? So it becomes even more important as a social impact investor to learn about their business and help them grow. There'll be instances where you face a portfolio company not doing so good, then you actually try and get into their operating model and try and support them with our learnings in this space, just to make them successful. So, and I think one of uh, the philosophy again which we work is we want our portfolio companies to be successful, and we do support them. Now we are going through this whole COVID crisis, and we do get requests on restructuring some of our debt funding and things like that, and we do support them as much as we can, and what is within our powers to do it. That's the philosophy. And I think being an impact investor is the most important thing, is to see what kind of a value proposition you're creating for that customers, and what kind of a value proposition you're creating for the community in large. So you have to have that acumen, you have to have an understanding of the impact which is going to make, or what it is making already. So that's a bit of, it's a mix of a commercial funding plus this impact funding. So you have to have that acumen of understanding the problem solving methods these companies are doing. Now, you also ask about our portfolio size. Right now, we are shy of $100 million. And most of the investments are in sub-Saharan Africa. Some of them is in Indian subcontinent, including India, Pakistan. We are evaluating other Southeast Asian countries now. We are also working on 2 large funds in coming next 9 to 12 months. Things were going really fast, but now, as you can imagine, with all this COVID situation, things are a bit slow. But that's the overall size of the business we are and what's in the pipeline.
And you still wanted to remain in touch with academics. So you've been a visiting faculty at like MDI Murshidabad, at IIM Kashipur. Please tell us about this. Like, do you spare time out of weekends as a conscious choice that you wanted to give back now to the students? Because, you know, as when I was also in IIM Ahmedabad, this industry people, once they come as visiting faculties, the perspective that they bring on the table is phenomenal. And professors, all said and done, are in that academic world. So is that what drives you to, because, you know, weekends people would think that, okay, let me spend time with my family, my daughter, you've got a 4-year daughter. So then what drives you to the IIMs and the MDIs?
I think it is connected with my not doing an MBA. Now I can go to an IIM. I can say that I went to an IIM, though on a different side. Now, coming back to why I do it, yes, of course, I do it as a personal interest, because I always believe teaching is a two-way learning. And I see it as a two-way conversation. So when I do these lectures, or when I do these sessions, now I've started doing it virtually, which is again a new experience. I actually tend to get some of the most difficult questions, which are even harder than some of the questions which I get in the boardroom with board of directors. So that is a different kind of a learning. And every lecture of mine has 1 or 2 questions have come up, which has been a learning for me, where I have went back and researched. I could have answered it at a very high level, but it has intrigued me to do more research into that particular topic. And what I have done is, when you interact with students, they get, as you rightly said, when somebody is coming from an industry background and they have been going through their regular classes, it excites them. So what I've done is, with some of the students are still connected with me, even though I have done 1 or 2 lectures at their colleges, but they're still connected with me. And they keep on asking me some of the questions which they feel is relevant. And I also did some research paper with some of the students with 1 or 2 colleges where I went, in some of the topics where I was also trying to learn, for example, structured finance, how Millennium behave in this particular new environment when it comes to employment and talent. So that's the overall background. And I can say I didn't do MBA, but this is more or less like an MBA for me, where I'm learning with these students. And there was one gentleman who was very, very favorite personality to me, Ramjit Maladi. I followed him a lot. I read his articles. And one interview, he was asked this question. Till the age he died, he used to go to colleges and he was a teacher. And same question was being asked to him. And he said, actually, the question was, how do you keep yourself young, Mr. Jetmalani? And he answered that, if you live among the youngs, you be young. So if you live among the people who are learning, you will tend to learn. So I think these are some of the philosophy which I liked and which actually um, excites me to do this. And when you're presenting something, you do a lot of research, and that also brings in some of the learning. So I think I see that as a learning for me, and if it helps the students, all the more good, because two people are learning.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, as we head towards the end of this little conversation, so in terms of your career journey, which is only like 1.5 decades, so are there, career mistakes that you have made, how you've recovered, if you'd like to share, which career transition, because you made a lot of career transitions in terms of themes, which was the most risky one where you had, goosebumps and said, hey, Amitesh, do you want to take this plunge or hold back? You're now comfortable out here. So please tell us about that, because, a lot of times, career has a lot to do with decisions. Sometimes they backfire.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's very risky. Then how do you do that?
I don't see this as a mistake, but it could be as close to as a mistake. When I left Big Four, and KPMG was a very, very big brand, and so it is. It has grown even bigger. And when I see some of my friends and colleagues still work there, I always thought that I could become a partner at KPMG, wear that suit, have a Mobla pen with me, and have that trolley bag with wheels, because that's how we saw all our partners coming in. One thing I miss is wearing the daily suit, which I always aspired when I saw my partner. So I could say that, that part is something which I still miss, not being at Big Four, but that was a conscious decision. So that could come as close to as a mistake, you can say. Now, coming to some of the risky things which I did with my career is when I left General Electric. It was a great role. It was like managing India controllership for one of the division for General Electric at that point of time was a great role. And I got that role early in my career. And I was learning a lot because there was a lot of coordination with India folks, US folks. I was in US for some time for a project. Things were going very smooth at General Electric, but I got this opportunity to work at Greenlight, and I took it up. It was a risk when, coming from a very stable organization, 330,000 employees, going to a startup kind of an environment. That was one. And second is that happened again at Greenlight, that within a 1-year stint, they offered me to do CFO role. And I joined them as a controller, a global controller. I was in a very comfortable zone because controllership is what I have done all my life till then. And then when they offered me the CFO role, I didn't had experience in many aspects of what a CFO do, including fundraising, and that was the need at Greenlight. So I have never done fundraising before, whether it be equity or debt. I had supported my earlier CFO, but never done it, never led it. And I thought that was a very big risk for me, moving into a very comfortable role to a role which is risky, and I could have lost my job easily if I wouldn't have delivered of what is required. And you know how startup works. They all like go into these cash burn scenarios, and they need back-to-back financing. So that was one of the riskiest move I think I did. But higher risk comes with higher rewards, and that's how I got into that CFO role, and I did that for almost 4 years. And I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. So that's a bit of a mistake and a risk which I took in my stint so far.
Yeah, that's a good thing. So your risk paid off, and now you are where you are. So towards the end of the question, so what do you do for fun and fitness?
Well, before this whole lockdown, I was playing badminton at least 3 to 4 days a week. For me, fun is traveling. And I have been fortunate enough for working in companies who have allowed me to travel extensively. Be it LinkedIn, Greenlight was extensive travel. And I traveled to some of parts of the world which I could have never imagined I will go. Say, be it Cote d'Ivoire, be it some very rural areas in Kenya, Tanzania, going through that Kilimanjaro area, which I would never thought I would go there, and I would never get an opportunity to go there. But there's a lot of learning from those travels. But I would say for fun, I like traveling. But let's see how this whole situation shapes up. Probably we'll have to modify my fun part as well when it comes to traveling. And on fitness, I don't do much, but it's let's see if
You're
everything
appearing quite
opens up
fit.
again.
You're appearing quite fit. You're not obese in spite of having a sedentary job. So that's one thing which I always advise youngsters, that no matter how sedentary is your job, always ensure that you don't get obesity, because the world, by the time you reach the age of 50, nowadays health has become a major thing. So BMW India's
Hmm.
CEO passed
Sure.
away out of a cardiac arrest. So that's a big thing. So, what is your final word of advice to viewers who've been watching you till this end? And this is the attention deficit millennial generation. I'm not very sure whether they have had the patience to come so far, but if they have, what has been your line of advice to them?
I think two things. Never shy away from taking risk and take them early in your life. Never shy away, because uh, there are two philosophies how you take this risk. One is, I'll just go back to that green light part where I took up that CFO role. I discussed that with a lot of my friends and a lot of my mentors. They gave me two advice. Hey, Amitesh, either you take that job and learn it through, or you learn it and then take that job. So the second option wasn't available. There was no way that I can tell my founders that, okay, give me 66 months, I learn it and then take this job. So I chose the first one. So, and it paid off. And why it paid off is just being focused and always be dedicated of what you have signed up for. Be it fitness, connecting it with fitness, signing up a gym membership, and nowadays cult membership is so very easy, but maintaining and doing it at least 3 or 4 times in a week is important. So I think being focused all through that uh, time is important. Now the second tip I think is a very basic one, and me being somewhat having a teacher instinct in myself, is learning. Never stop or never shy away from learning anything, be it anything. I think the more you learn, whether it is academics or you learn about something, what's happening in the world, or you learn about any art, any instrument, anything of that sort, be it sport, it opens up your gray matter. It helps you a lot in terms of developing new skill sets which you can apply in your day-to-day work life. So, be it reading books, read any kind of books which actually interest you. And I know some of my mentors who read Tintin, and you can imagine they can learn from that. So, any new thing open up door for learning. So never shy away. And one of the philosophy I also follow is never shy away learning, even when it comes from your juniors. And I have done that many times with my different stints. If somebody who is junior to you but has those skill sets which you think is useful for you, go ahead and ask for help, and they'll be more than happy to do that, because it's coming from somebody who is higher in the hierarchy, and that helps a lot.
Perfect. And I can agree with this because I have a junior Ayush who keeps interacting with you. So there are so many things in terms of financial modeling, Excel skills. So he is almost a decade younger to me, but I don't shy away from the fact of calling him and say, hey, look at this formula. Do you think you can crack it? So that's a great philosophy. So thank you so much, Amitesh, for being on this show. And it's been a pleasure. And I'm sure as a young achiever, you'll continue to inspire people who have taken up the CA course, aspire for an MBA, because you are like almost like a functional MBA in spite of not having the MBA degree. And wish you the very best for the future. Thank you.
Thanks, Anurag. Thanks for having me.